What to do with your money in your 20s, 30s, and 40s. The complete roadmap. Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to David Invests. If you are new here, this channel is about giving regular people the financial roadmap that nobody handed them growing up. The clear, honest, practical information that actually works in the real world for people with real bills and real salaries. No jargon, no gatekeeping, no pretending this stuff is more complicated than it needs to be. And if you have been following this series, you know the crew. Chris, the delivery driver, Priya, the hospital administrator, Raymond, the teacher, Keisha, the office manager, Andre and Vanessa paying down debt, and Thomas, the 52-year-old project manager who started late but is finally building something real. Today's video is the one I have been building towards since the very first script in this series. Because everything we have talked about, emergency funds, debt payoff order, compound interest, Roth IRs, high yield savings accounts, lifestyle inflation, all of it fits inside a larger framework, a roadmap, a sequence of priorities that changes depending on what decade of your financial life you are in. Because the right moves in your 20s are not the same as the right moves in your 30s. And the right moves in your 30s are not the same as the right moves in your 40s. The fundamentals are the same, but the emphasis changes. The urgency around certain decisions changes. And understanding what matters most in each decade is the difference between arriving at retirement with real options and arriving with regret. This is the complete roadmap. Let's get into it. Before I break this down by decade, I want to establish one principle that runs through every stage of this roadmap. Because without this principle, the decade by decade advice is just a list of things to do. With it, the whole thing becomes a system that makes sense. The principle is this: every financial decision you make is either buying you future freedom or buying you present comfort. And the earlier in life you make a decision, the more dramatically it tips one way or the other. That is not a judgment about present comfort. Present comfort is real and it matters, and you are allowed to enjoy your life. The point is simply to be conscious about the trade-off, to understand clearly what you are choosing when you choose it. Because most people who end up like Thomas did not make a conscious decision to trade future freedom for present comfort. They just never thought about it in those terms. And by the time they did, decades had passed. Every dollar you spend is a choice. Every dollar you save is a choice. The roadmap I am about to give you is designed to help you make those choices consciously, in the right order, at the right time, with the right level of urgency for where you actually are in your financial life. Let us start with your 20s. If you are in your 20s right now, this is the most important financial decade of your life. Not because the amounts of money involved are large. They almost certainly are not. But because of what I have talked about throughout this entire series. Time. The dollars you put to work in your 20s have the longest runway of any dollars you will ever invest. They have 40 or more years to compound. And as we have seen, the math on 40 years of compounding is almost unbelievable. The 20s are not about getting rich. They are about building the foundation so that compound interest can do the heavy lifting for the next 4 decades. Here's exactly what the 20s roadmap looks like. The first priority in your 20s is building your financial baseline. This means 3 things. A real budget that you actually follow. Not a perfect budget, just an honest one that tells you where your money actually goes every month. A small starter emergency fund of at least $1,000 to keep a bad month from turning into a financial catastrophe. And a clear picture of every debt you carry and what each one is costing you in interest every month. You cannot make good decisions without this information. Most people in their 20s are flying blind financially. They have a vague sense of what they earn and a vaguer sense of what they spend, and no real idea what their debt is actually costing them. The first priority is simply turning the lights on. The second priority in your 20s is capturing your employer match. If your employer offers any matching contribution to a 401k, capture every single dollar of it immediately. This is not optional. This is not something to get around to eventually. A 100% match on your contributions up to a certain percentage is a guaranteed 100% return on that money. It is the single best financial move available to most people in their 20s, and it requires almost no financial knowledge to execute. Find out what your employer matches, contribute exactly enough to capture all of it. Do it this week. The third priority in your 20s is eliminating high interest debt. Anything above 10% interest is a financial emergency, regardless of the balance size. A small credit card balance at 24% interest is more urgent than a large student loan at 4%. Attack the high rate debt aggressively. Use the hybrid approach we talked about in the debt video. Get it gone before you focus on anything else beyond the employer match. The fourth priority in your 20s is opening a Roth IRA and starting to invest. And here's why the Roth IRA is specifically the right account for most people in their 20s. Your income is likely lower now than it will be at any other point in your career, which means your tax rate right now is likely lower than it will be in your 30s, 40s, and beyond. The Roth IRA lets you pay taxes now at your current lower rate and then never pay taxes on that money again, including all the decades of growth it accumulates. The math on this is significant. Paying 15% tax on $5,000 today to avoid paying 25% tax on $50,000 or $100,000 or $200,000 in retirement is one of the better financial decisions available to a young investor. Use the Roth IRA aggressively in your 20s while your income, and therefore your tax rate, is at its lowest. The fifth priority in your 20s is building the habit of investing before you feel the money. This is more important than the amount you invest. Whether it is $50 a month or $500 a month, the habit of automating your contributions so that the money goes to work before you ever see it in your checking account is the foundation everything else is built on. Build this habit in your 20s, and it will carry you through every decade that follows. Let me show you what getting the 20s right actually looks like with Chris as our example. Chris started investing at 28. He is putting $184 a month into his Roth IRA. He has zero high-interest debt. He has a $4,500 emergency fund and a high-yield savings account earning real interest. His system is automated. His habit is built. He is not rich. He does not look wealthy from the outside. He drives the same car he drove before he started this journey, but the foundation is set. And the math, the patient, indifferent, relentless math of compound interest is working for him every single day. Now let us talk about your 30s. The 30s are where the financial stakes get meaningfully higher and where the decisions you make start to have much larger long-term consequences. Income is usually higher than it was in the 20s, but so are the pressures, mortgages, children, aging parents, career pivots, the cost of building a life that actually looks like the one you imagined. The 30s are also the decade where lifestyle inflation does its most dangerous work, because income is rising fast enough to make spending feel sustainable, even when it is not building toward anything. Here's exactly what the 30s roadmap looks like. The first priority in your 30s is maximizing your tax-advantaged retirement accounts. If you built the Roth IRA habit in your 20s, your 30s are about increasing the contribution. The annual Roth IRA contribution limit is currently $7,000 per year for people under 50. Getting as close to that limit as possible in your 30s, while also increasing your 401k contributions beyond the employer match, is the single most impactful financial move most people in their 30s can make. Every dollar you get into a tax-advantaged account in your 30s has 30 or more years to compound completely free of additional taxation. That is an extraordinary advantage that most people dramatically underuse because they are not thinking in decades. The second priority in your 30s is handling housing correctly. For many people, the 30s bring the first home purchase. And a home is simultaneously one of the most important financial decisions and one of the most emotionally charged decisions most people ever make, which is exactly why so many people make it badly. Here's the framework for housing in your 30s. A home is a place to live first, and an investment second, if at all. Do not stretch beyond what is genuinely comfortable in your budget to buy the house that feels right socially or emotionally. The mortgage payment that feels manageable at signing has a way of feeling very different during a car repair month or a medical expense month or a job loss. The general guideline of keeping your total housing costs, mortgage, insurance, taxes, maintenance, below 25 to 30% of your take-home pay exists for a reason. And do not drain your investment accounts or emergency fund for a down payment. A home purchase that leaves you financially vulnerable is not a step forward. It is a different kind of financial instability. Priya is in her early 30s. She has been approached by the idea of buying a home in Dallas and has thought carefully about the numbers. Her calculations showed that with her current income and her current savings rate, she can afford a home that is comfortable without compromising her investment contributions or her emergency fund. She is waiting until she has a 20% down payment so she avoids private mortgage insurance and keeps her monthly costs lower. She is not rushing. She is not buying more house than she needs because of social pressure. She is making the decision on her terms, on her timeline. The third priority in your 30s is protecting what you are building. As your net worth grows, slowly at first, then faster, the things that can set you back become more consequential. Adequate life insurance if you have dependents. Disability insurance, since your ability to earn is your most valuable financial asset. A will if you have children. These are not exciting financial topics, but a single unprotected catastrophe can undo years of careful progress. The 30s are the decade to make sure the foundation is protected. The fourth priority in your 30s is intercepting lifestyle inflation aggressively. Your income is probably growing faster in your 30s than at any other point in your career, and lifestyle inflation is waiting for every raise, every promotion, every bonus. Apply the 50% rule relentlessly. Half of every income increase goes to your future before your present self gets a chance to absorb it into a more expensive lifestyle. Now let us talk about your 40s. The 40s are the decade where everything becomes visible. The gap between people who got the earlier decades right and people who did not starts showing up in real, undeniable numbers. And for people who got a late start, like Thomas, the 40s are the decade of reckoning and the decade of serious course correction. Here's exactly what the 40s roadmap looks like. The first priority in your 40s is an honest assessment. Sit down and calculate your current trajectory. Based on what you have saved and what you are contributing every month, where do you actually land at 65? There are free retirement calculators online that do this in minutes. Run the numbers. Look at the result honestly. If the number is where it needs to be, stay the course. If the number is not where it needs to be, the 40s are your best remaining opportunity to close the gap aggressively. The second priority in your 40s is maxing every available tax-advantaged account. At age 50, you become eligible for catch-up contributions, an additional $1,000 per year to your Roth IRA, and an additional $7,500 per year to your 401k beyond the regular limits. If you are approaching 50 and your savings are behind where they need to be, these catch-up contributions are one of the most powerful tools available to you. Plan now for how you will use them starting at 50. The third priority in your 40s is eliminating all remaining consumer debt. If you still have credit card debt or car loans or personal loans in your 40s, this is the decade to make their elimination a non-negotiable priority. Arriving at your 50s with no consumer debt dramatically frees up cash flow for the final push toward retirement. Every dollar you are sending to a creditor in your 50s is a dollar not compounding in a tax-advantaged account during the most important catch-up years of your financial life. The fourth priority in your 40s is getting serious about your income. The 40s are when most people reach their peak earning years, and yet many people coast professionally in their 40s, comfortable in a role, not pushing for promotions, not seeking higher paying opportunities, not investing in skills that would make them more valuable. Your income is your most powerful wealth building tool. Treating it as such in your 40s, negotiating aggressively, pursuing advancement, building skills that increase your earning power, can have an enormous impact on your ability to close any savings gap. Thomas did not negotiate a salary increase for 7 years in his 40s. He got small annual cost of living adjustments and told himself he was doing fine. An independent salary review he finally did at age 49 showed him he was being paid about 14% below market rate for his role and experience. He negotiated a meaningful raise. He directed the entire increase to his retirement contributions. It was not enough to make up for 2 decades of undersaving, but it was meaningfully better than coasting. The fifth priority in your 40s is beginning to think seriously about what retirement actually looks like for you. Not in a vague someday way, but in specific, concrete, operational terms. What age do you actually want to retire? What does your monthly spending in retirement look like? What sources of income will you have? Social Security, investment withdrawals, part-time work, rental income? The clearer your picture of what you are building toward, the better your decisions about how aggressively to build. Let me pull the whole roadmap together now, because I want you to be able to see all 3 decades at once and understand how they connect. In your 20s, build the foundation. Emergency fund, employer match, high interest debt eliminated, Roth IRA opened, automatic contributions started, habit built. In your 30s, maximize the advantage. Tax advantaged accounts filled as aggressively as possible, housing handled correctly, lifestyle inflation intercepted at every raise, protection in place. In your 40s, close the gap and accelerate. Honest assessment of your trajectory. Every available account maxed, consumer debt eliminated, income maximized, concrete picture of retirement built. These 3 decades are not separate stories. They are one continuous story. And the decisions you make in each decade either expand or contract the options available to you in the decades that follow. Now, here's the honest conversation I want to have with you directly, because I know that some people watching this video are in their 40s and feeling behind. And some people are in their 30s and feeling like they wasted their 20s. And some people are in their 20s and wondering if it is already too late because they have debt and not much savings. And the gap between where they are and where this roadmap says they should be feels overwhelming. I want to say something clearly to every one of those people. It is not too late. It is never too late. The math changes when you start late, but it does not stop working. A dollar invested at 45 still has 20 years to compound if you retire at 65. 20 years of compound interest on consistent contributions still produces life-changing numbers. It produces smaller numbers than it would have at 25, but smaller than life-changing is still often very meaningful. Thomas started seriously at 47. He will not retire at 60 with the portfolio portfolio he would have had if he had started at 25. But if he stays consistent for the next 15 years, maxes his catch-up contributions from 50 onward, eliminates his remaining consumer debt, and keeps lifestyle inflation in check on his growing salary, he can still retire with meaningful financial security. Not the outcome the early start would have produced, but a genuinely good outcome that will look very different from retiring with nothing. The people who are truly stuck are not the people who started late. The people who are truly stuck are the people who know they are behind and use that as a reason to stop trying, rather than a reason to start right now with everything they have. You are watching this video, which means you are someone who is thinking about this, someone who wants a different outcome than the average, someone who is willing to learn and adjust and do the work. That puts you ahead of most people already. Not because most people are not capable, because most people never get around to taking this seriously until it is genuinely too late to change the trajectory. You still have time. Whatever decade you are in, whatever your current savings balance looks like, whatever debt you are carrying, whatever mistakes you have made or years you have lost, you have time. Use it. In your 20s, start tonight. In your 30s, maximize this year. In your 40s, go harder than you think you need to. The roadmap is in front of you. The next step is always the same. One account opened, one automatic transfer set up, one extra payment made, one real decision followed immediately by one concrete action. That is how Chris did it. That is how Priya did it. That is how Raymond and Keisha and Andre and Vanessa are doing it. And that is how Thomas is finally doing it at 52. One step. Right now. Not someday. Now. I'll see you in the next one. And as always, if this video gave you a clearer picture of where you are and where you need to go, hit subscribe. Every week I put out one video breaking down the money stuff that actually matters for regular people building something real. No fluff, no filler, just a roadmap. Hit subscribe and I will see you next week.